rise for the I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. This is our second in potentially a series of workshops as we continue to debate and make decisions around long-term facilities planning. So we'll kind of pick up where we left off. I know Jeff has got some things prepared for kind of a next portion of our workshop, but we'll kick it off. We have two special guests here, and it's kind of a continuation, I think, of the conversation that we started with Ryan last time. We have Ryan Bailey here, who is the Village of Heartland, both, I think, business manager, involved in all the finance. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, our president of the Village of Heartland, Jeff Vanderstone. So Jeff couldn't make it last time, so we enjoyed, I think, again, a very, fruitful conversation with Ryan last time. And just for framing, what started this whole thing was the prospects of Jeff and I engaging in a conversation around, he was aware that we were looking at referendum for our school, what would be included in that referendum, what was the time frame, especially knowing that potentially we were looking to deliver through referendum some of the recreational services that would be of interest for Heartland to provide to its citizens as well. And so in an effort not to provide duplication of services and tax our taxpayers inordinately, we kind of had a conversation about where is this going, what's the time frame, and obviously that culminated in what were some of the included items in the past two recent referendums. So here we are again to kind of continue the conversation with Heartland, to take a look at what partnering potential we have and where that might go. So I thank you for being here, as obviously you can speak to the business and the finance, but Jeff really can speak, I think, a little bit more in terms of what his board would be inclined to do in representation of the board, and from a historical perspective. Maybe you wouldn't mind starting there, Jeff. And
I will say, anytime it's during business hours, feel free to call Ryan, because he does usually have. He's either got a really fast way of getting in touch with me, or he'll just have the answer. So if there's ever something you need, I got out of the car today. I'll try to go over a lot and not get too lost in the weeds, which I tend to do sometimes. But I do appreciate you guys having me here, so that I can try to give some background on how, in my opinion, we got here. And I say we because I'm a citizen that just had 4 kids that went through here. And yes, my last just graduated last May. But I have my own opinion on how we got here. But that lot line right there is the Heartland Arrowhead lot line, or the Heartland Town and Merton lot line. And Arrowhead, I want to touch on why Arrowhead is where it is. I think for most of you, I already went over this, so I'll say it quickly. But Heartland North, and that location is, you can even see it when you walk into their lobby. They show the old Heartland schools. All of these feeders used to go to Heartland High School. And Heartland High School was there because it was, for lack of a better term, I guess, but I'm not going to call it a major metropolis, but it was the more populated area that had more infrastructure. So with it having more infrastructure, and so a lot of the surrounding, I'm going to call it communities or neighborhoods, so I like to call it North Lake and Freeze Lake, and even, they went up to Aaron. All of those were coming and going to the school. But then it was time that they needed a new school. And I believe it was in the 50s, I think. So now everybody's got equal power, because these schools are saying, hey, let's form a new school. And you have Heartland School District, let's form a new school. And the bitterness and people holding on and saying, well, I've got the power to say we won't vote for this, but people want to get a new school. Cause people to make their vote of, we need this, yes, we need it, but we will do it only if it's not in Heartland. Because everybody's jockeying for, we want to have the bigger name. We don't want Heartland to get too much. They were fighting over who was going to be the next metropolis. There was all kinds of things going on back in those days. And I'm giving the history because I think it's very important because it is about, this is how we're here now. Highway 16 used to be what is now Capitol Drive. It was called Main Street then, going through Heartland. When people say their parking problems are bad in Heartland, people don't know anything. Highway 16 used to go through Heartland. Everybody from Milwaukee and everyone to the east was coming through Heartland on Highway 16 and would stop at the shops, the restaurants, and all of that there. And there was nowhere to park. No one in Heartland even took their car downtown. You didn't take your car downtown because it was jam-packed the whole time with just stop signs. And then they all of a sudden brought through the highway, freeway. And people thought about that because they were worried that their shops might, lose this. I'm just saying the area was going through so much so fast. I don't know if people realize it, but even I-94, the beginning of I-94 is where that big loop from 16 ends and it goes to 94. That's where I-94 started. So I'm just saying the whole area was going through a lot, but there was a lot of communities that were fighting, saying, no, we're going to be the major. But in their defense, they were fighting for their businesses. They were fighting for their businesses and trying to make sure that traffic still had to go through there without all of a sudden being used this freeway. They were scared to death. They had never even had freeways. And I know I'm going long, but it's important because that fighting continued on and that fighting continues today. That fighting continues today where I'll tell you the truth, this school district is like a big city. And we are. I'm going to see someone from every single one of the districts at the feeder schools. If I go out and about to a big event, whether it's the Heartland Street Dance or whether it's something out in Okachi, even though that's not a feeder area, if I go to something in North Lake, if I go to something in Merton, I'm going to see everybody from the whole district because we're all in it together. Realistically, it's a big city with a bunch of neighborhoods, but we're still holding on to that. We're all out of the middle. We're North Lake and Merton and Richmond, and we're this, and we're this, and we're this. We're gonna have 27 superintendents, and we're not gonna collaborate here, sir. We'll do it ourselves. Doing it ourselves is all fine, and it was fine. It was all fine, and when it was 25-mile-an-hour speed limits and cars that broke down and needed a valve job after 50,000 miles, and it was tough to get together. But now it's not like that anymore. You could probably, within a 2-hour span, drive and hit every single school within the Arrowhead district and you got the Arrowhead. The reason I'm saying all of that is because, the history, I think, is a very important piece to why are we at where we're at. And so now we have Arrowhead as a school district. And Arrowhead was taken out of Heartland. If this school goes on lockdown, I can tell you exactly 100% every single time, unless something else crazy happened to the far south, what police officers will be there first. If this school has a major fire, or an incident where someone stops breathing and they need help, I can guarantee you who will be there first. So the only reason that this school district is not in Heartland is simply because of fighting that started in the 1950s. Resource officers. You have a resource officer, and that this is nothing against the county. I'm just saying it's different than the way it necessarily should be. You have a resource officer, and I understand that's all great if they know the people in the school, but they don't know all the people in the community. They come to the school, they go home, and they're back at their boss is in Waukesha. Where in Heartland, the boss is right there in Heartland. You're a person that knows families. A person lives right down the road, right at the edge of 16, who's an officer on the department that works day shift. He's probably going to be the one getting that call if he wouldn't lock down at 9 in the morning. I'm saying all this just so that everybody knows there is a reason that we got here, but now in trying to do good governing, how do we fix it? How do we get through it? And I think that working together is the only way that we do that. And so one of the things that I've said, even, and this is past tense, I'm not bringing it with any angst, and Ryan doesn't hold any problems with this. Heartland Rec, we had an agreement with Delafield where their residents, because they would pay a certain portion to us, would get village. The village pays less than someone outside of the village because our taxpayers are putting money to fund that. But how are we working together when our rec is running out of space? Are we able to use some of Arrowhead's space if it's sitting empty? Like right now, if there was a rec program, could they be using it? Is that something that benefits Arrowhead? Obviously, would benefit our rec program. What can we do to help each other? And for so long, it's been, that's for you to worry about. Honestly, even if you go to the town, I'm not saying that the people necessarily want it to be that way. Maybe they just don't have enough control. You'd have to understand how the governments work. The town is just beholden to the county. They do have a county board just to keep things on track. They don't have home rule like a village does. They don't have home rule like a city does. So there's not a lot that they can do. We have a major traffic problem that obviously affects Hartman. Whenever school goes in and whenever it gets out. Honestly, we have a safety problem in the subdivision right next door because if something really wild popped off, I don't know what they're doing in there. But I mean, we're the country, so we make it happen. But we can work together better. And I bring up the rec program because our rec could possibly use space. Someone brought up this year with fireworks and hometown celebration. Arrowhead's got a huge lot. Why can't we get a service that shuttles people back and forth and we could use that for parking while it sits empty? These are little tiny things that we can do to work together, but I think there's some bigger things that we can do to work together. There's other communities that have done this before us. We're not reinventing the wheel. I know we don't want to be the city of Milwaukee. I'm just stating, in the city of Milwaukee, the school system actually runs the rec program. They run it, take money. That's how they do that. I mean, I'm not saying they're making money on it, they're not. But they run it and it all runs through their system. If you go out and try to buy a ticket to get into a high school game at one of Milwaukee's schools, you're going to pay that ticket, but it'll actually go through the recreation department of the city of Milwaukee, which is run by MTS. They work together. Wauwatosa and State. So, Wauwatosa East plays football at Hart Park, so does Marquette High. Because they go and they rent that field instead of paying to build one themselves. Marquette High just has no space. They have one location on the space. They practice field, but they're not, they used to have Marquette Field, that's all really cool history. Anyways, how can we work better? I know there's a lot of things that you guys run into that you don't have. I mean, obviously, I think of like auditorium, and these are the big ones, like pool. My kids obviously went through wrestling. There's a reason that people that want to become D1 wrestlers are coming here. And I'll tell you right now, it says Aspen Wrestling Academy. It's right in Hartman. And because people like Keegan O'Toole, Mitchell Messenbrink, Matt Askren, Max Askren, people that have gone and actually not only just won an NCAA title, they won 2 of them, then went on to the Olympics, and then went all over the world, and every single time someone says something, it's, they're coming out of Hartman Arrowhead, so they're calling it Hartman Arrowhead. Anyways, but the point being, people are coming here because that's a reason people are coming to the school. How do we create that? I have a niece that's coming and going to Lake Country Lutheran next year. Her parents, my sister, and her husband live in Franklin. They don't necessarily want to send her to public there. Things are different than they are out here in Lake Country. But there's a child that's going from Franklin to Lake Country Lutheran. And I'm just trying, what can we do to institute that here? We just lived off, I'm going to get into some more history here, because I think it's really important. You guys have gone through 2 failed referendums. But there's something else that's happened. And I'm going to be honest, for years when I was a child, and I didn't say this, I grew up in Milwaukee. I mean, one time I came and visited someone in Hartman. I mean, it was the talk. It was like, screw that. I mean, you thought when you were going to come in, it was just gilded streets, and anybody that pulls in that isn't from town is automatically going to get pulled over with a checkpoint, and just don't even go out there. And they're cocky and just terrible. That used to be like that. That was in our football days. But at the same time, all of that was going on. And I'm not saying that that was true. I'm saying that was the perception from people outside, like in the cities, and around the state. Because I went to my Lake High School right now. Up there, everybody knew Arrowhead was because of football. But there was also something else going on. And I feel like it's not being addressed. So I know that's not what I'm here for, but I think it's very important to say. For 25 years, there's a lot of things that weren't being done because everybody was looking up at this really bright star that was football. And that was the Van Asprens. And that was this, and that was this. And there's a board, because I was part of removing it, that didn't do anything to fix things that need to be fixed. What makes a good elected official is, yeah, it's really fun to get out there in front of the people when it's all noticed, and you're on the front page of the paper, and then, yeah, that's great when people are saying you're doing a great job. But if all of a sudden something's going wrong that no one's noticing, it's going to really be a major problem. 20 years since fixing it now. who's fixing it, but it costs $5, so that doesn't end up becoming a $1,000 fix. And that's kind of what I feel hasn't gotten out to the community. In fact, after the last referendum, the community doesn't even know that there's an immense amount of people after we went through COVID when they were trying to shove stuff down our throats. Heartland stayed open, but they were trying to shove stuff down our throats, and people were fighting for it. So obviously, you can tell I'm on that side. I do have compassion for people that were on the other side. I just didn't think it was as bad as they were trying to put it. I don't think it was so bad that children should have been in a learning environment together, or like my son should have completely lost at graduation completely. I thought that was a little overkill, or a lot. But the reason we're in the position we're in is because elected officials that sat on the school board did not take care of things that were supposed to be taken care of that would have been general maintenance that caused major disrepair over time. A little leak can cause major problems. It's true. A little problem in your car can start to lead to major problems. But if you have people looking at something else so they don't notice that's all happening, what happened is the game ran out on saying everything's perfect. Game ran out. You know, there's donors that might donate a new turf on the football field or a new scoreboard, or donors that might donate, you know, a new locker room for basketball. There's some donations that happen in other areas, and there's some government grants that can come in, but there's not a whole line of donors that I saw outside the door saying, I want to get this theater and I'll just put my name on this little theater. I don't know why it's like that, but there's not. So there's not a bunch of donors that people want the pool, but there's not the donors that are coming and doing it. You know, I wish the people that are getting the scoreboard and stuff like that could get and help with the pool and the theater and the other things and say, hey, let's help all the kids, but there just doesn't seem as much push. So in Heartland, being right next door, I have talked with Kim and some of you, and said, I mean, I'm open to, not because we want to take it over and have it say Heartland and Arrowhead on the side of the school. I think the services are just there. If Arrowhead were to vote and say, we would like to be annexed by the village of Heartland. There's another component that comes into that. All these problems that go on with traffic, I can in good faith go to the taxpayers of the village of Heartland and say, hey, let's just go fix this for another municipality on your dime. That would be absolutely wrong. And in my opinion, it should be illegal if I were to even try to do that, to take care of another community with taxpayer dollars up here because that community wants to keep their taxes low. That's not fair. And I'm talking about, I'm talking about the town. I'm not saying that against the school. Our rec department struggles to have a place to go, where we had to think about building a new rec center, but yet we have space. I can't imagine that there's not a reason that we can't work together. And when I say work together, I'm not saying, oh, we got 2 hours this week and 2 hours next week when we're not using it. If we're working together, we're all of a sudden we collaborate on something. I mean, to be like, okay, can we get some time since we're putting our skin in the game? But that door is open for the school to work together to try to create that for the community. And I'm open to discussion. I guess is where I'm trying to lead to. The biggest steps that I want to come away, and I'm not trying to have it all like this and that, but I mean, I really do think that all of us, including myself, need to be thinking, I mean, and Kennedy said it, like, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I think that if every single one of us, I think there's too many people on too many boards. They get on it because they're pissed off about one thing. They get on it because they're just gonna go take care of this one issue, or they just get on it just plain and simple because they're angry. Lastly, and worst case in my book, because the people that are just angry, they fizzle out and just don't run again, are the ones that just want to be on the board, so that when they're at the grocery store, and when they're at the library, and when they run into Mary Lou, and when they run into Tom, they can be like, oh yeah, I was at the meeting last night, so, but I can't tell you that because it's a closed session, so, and they will, because it's just cool to them, they consider it their peak, and the fact is they peaked a long time ago if they feel that cool, but their peak is gone, but it's the truth, and it goes on a lot. It's what's causing the schools from being able to form one Arrowhead school district. No one can tell me it's for any other reason. There is no other reason that any school district would not want to be just one school district with one superintendent, where you could have 3 elementary schools that have one music teacher that bounces amongst that school, and every taxpayer is saving money. I really, truly, there's no way anybody can even come with an argument other than say that I want to maintain control. I know you do. We all know you do. That's why you're on this board and you've been on it for 30 years. So we know, but is your control more important than what people can do for the people of this community. And I think that every person has to truly think about, are they doing it for that reason? If you're doing it for that reason, you fight the good fight. But that's what people need to think about. Not maintaining control, making Lake Country better. When this whole system was devised, I haven't looked at the whole layout, but I mean, Hartman had maybe 2,200 people in 1956. There's 10,000 plus in Hartman, and I guarantee you Merton and all the other areas have grown. And just to say we don't need to change the system, the same one that worked in 1956 is going to work now. I'm just sorry, it doesn't work for getting to the moon, to use the technology that we had in 1956. It doesn't work for teaching kids, as we know what we did in 1956. It doesn't work for, honestly, anything. We don't want them building cars like they did in 1956. Again, where you need a valve job and you got to have a bunch of parts replaced and a carburetor rebuilt at 50,000 miles. My Toyota Camry that Jeffrey used to drive 320,000 miles. That's the hurt. It's not a Camry, it's a Corolla. Thing's awesome. But, you know, Heartland is open to the beginning of that process. Heartland is open to the beginning of that process. We don't know what that process is. You know, I turned to Ryan because I don't want to scare her, but maybe that means we do collaborate and do something that can help rec, and everybody in the district gets to get paid a village rate instead of it being the plus 15 or 25% that they would have to pay to keep those programs. And that goes for all programs. People don't realize it. The old library, Lindsay, that's underneath the police station. I mean, right now people are lighting Heartland up. They're like, what about the library space underneath the police station? That's never used, right? And this goes to show the disconnect in the community. Can you honestly see how often are people down there? I know they're there during our village board meeting. They're running classes constantly. Because you have a guess, is it continuous? There's elderly, it just happens, anybody can go play. There's elderly people that get together down there and they play sheep's head. They bring their snacks and they bring coffee. That's what we do to make it good for everybody in the community. But the misinformation, well, it's just sitting down there empty. Nothing's happening. No, nothing's happening because you're not going and looking. And you want someone to come and show you a video at your door and say, here, this is what's happening. Well, I'm not coming to your door. If you want to have the misinformation, you have the misinformation. That's fine. But misinformation can kill a lot of things. Okay. And people wanting to maintain control too much can kill a lot of things. And I think that working together can lead to some really, really great things. Where it's, you know, I always try to look at 50, 75, and 100 years on what is going to be better for this community. Is what I'm doing going to be better for this community in 50 years? Then it's worth doing. If it's not going to be better, if it's only going to be better right now because it makes me look cool, that's cool for me, but that's not better for the community. And it doesn't help me that I might feel like if I got to think about what's right and what's wrong, because I know what's right. And if I'm doing what I think is right, I think everybody has to do that. If all these other school districts do the same, I know I'm getting kind of off, but my point is we need to start working. I don't care if it's at a pool, I don't care if it's at a theater, I don't care if it's at a community center, if it's on safety resource, like it is SRO safety resource officer. You know, I mean, and maybe it is. Maybe from the sheriff, you guys are getting a better deal. Maybe it does cost 10,000 more, but I can't imagine saying, well, we're better off doing it this. And I'm not looking for the money. I'm saying if we pay the cost, it's going to be, this is what it costs us. So we have to pass it on. We're not gonna fund it. But is that $10,000 worth saying, no, let's not? I'm just saying those are the little things where sometimes, I mean, we had a problem in Heartland. People may say it's wrong. We had waste management doing the garbage. We had, I don't know how many, but we were getting about 20 to 25 complaints a week if you average it out more and more. We did, GFL did cost more, but their service, they don't miss anything. And they were taking a picture of every single house to make sure that the cans were out. They brought a lot of stuff. In the long run, it was a better service. All the complaints stopped when you did. Now, it did cost us more. But Waste Management was undercutting and then providing lackluster service. They were providing the service they put up. Well, yeah, you can undercut if you do that. If I tell you guys that I'm going to paint the wall for you, but I actually just pride it, yeah, I can come in at a lower price than the person that's going to pride and paint the wall. So I'm just saying these are all things to think about where it's been done before. I'm not trying to take too much time, but I'm really trying to get the point across and working together. But you know, my kids.
So Jeff, when Ryan was in last night, we had kind of explored potential paths then to partnership.
Mhm.
And I think the one that arose that probably made the most sense was annexation. Can you speak to that process a little bit, Ryan, as well? What that looks like? Who prompts that process?
Sure.
What happens along the way?
Arrowhead is just like a home if it was in the village of Merton, except for it's the board that's in control. The board would vote, however you guys go through your process. But you would vote that you want to come to the village and you want to be annexed into the village. Yep. And then you would contact Ryan. Ryan would discuss with me, that puts you on the agenda. You would come and present and say, we would like to be annexed. The board, I don't believe because they're not building anything. That actually would just go through. Ryan then gets the proper things to our attorney. We would tell you certain things that you need to go over with your own attorney. There may be a call between the DPI may want to do their chiming in, and then our attorneys may talk or trade correspondence. But ideally, then we would just guide the process. I think there'd be quite a few steps in it. But meaning that there's certain waiting periods, and there'd be a public hearing. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I think there is. Minimum of 30 days, and you got to have a public hearing. And we might have to have a certain amount of readings. But you'd be looking at time. It's just making sure that the entire public knows what's out there and pros and cons of it.
For example, so most people in 2027 we're repaving Campus Drive. We're literally going to stop like a stub because we can't go into Merton. We're not.
Yep.
We can't do anything. We can't come out of Arrowhead's property. So as much as you guys want a through road, we're putting in a brand new Campus Drive that we can't connect to. We're doing anything.
Right.
If you're annexed, they may see an advantage to flowing that in through Arrowhead onto North Ave. So.
And in history, just so this comes into the fighting. And I'm not calling people names. All I'm stating are facts. It's not, sometimes I throw my own little stuff on it so you can see how I feel about it. But I am really just going with facts. Seidel was the president. The board voted. Heartland offered to put that road in through the two campuses for free to alleviate traffic. And Arrowhead said, no joke. It was being talked about. The president called and said, no, we're not doing it. $1 million project that now will cost $3 to $5 million. Because we didn't do it then, but that's the fighting stuff where it's because, well, why should Hartley be able to put it? We don't need that.
Do you know if that was that put to the board, the full board?
I don't know.
This was
I'm not
back in 2013, 2011, something.
Yeah, it might even been earlier than that. I don't know if the president of at that time, things were real, the country was a different place.
So most places,
I'm the president and you don't need it until I put it on the agenda.
most
But
places,
he said, no, we're not doing that.
most places annex into a village, like you get water, sewer, you guys have a water and sewer.
They said, yeah, these are the districts.
So the advantages for you guys will be, you have an SRO, you get our SRO, whatever. Yeah, you have two, we would provide two, and we have a cost, we have a whole formula, so that won't change. And that's just, our cost is what it is, I don't know what their cost is versus that. But it would be the continuation of streets and the future of, if we wanted to partner and build some sort of facility with you that was a recreation facility on your grounds, right now, we would be telling our taxpayers we're building Park and Rec in Merton, that wouldn't fly.
And the current president would not even allow these streets.
But, if we were annexed in, we wanted to partner, and, because I know we've had a bunch of people approach us with an appetite for like an indoor, for volleyball, for baseball, for wrestling, for everything. I think there could be donor money opportunities with that. Us helping fund that, but getting, you guys maintaining, that's a path that will not get figured out today, but that is the future. I don't know that helps immediately for you guys, but it is something that, we have a desire. The rec center we were going to build was probably 12 to 13 million. We would house like one long one basketball court, some volleyball. We only have 2 rec employees, so we decided not to do it. It was just too much of an undertaking, too much cost, too much of risk. But yeah, annexation, with that, our roads would connect from campus all the way over, and we'd be able to all that. It would be weird because Merton would still have to go through all the subdivision up there.
It would be weird, but
They don't want to get.
Right. But And Ryan is, I mean, the only cons to that, and I think we talked about this a little bit, there would be certain times if something were to get built in Merton or in Arrowhead, where all of a sudden it might change because they would have to build it to our standards. We have certain standards that are higher than, just like in the town. When it comes to, I don't know,
Zoning setbacks, everything.
yeah, zoning setbacks and everything would then be followed.
You guys have our water sewer, everything in place right now.
Yeah,
We would not take over your water sewer, that would stay private. That reason for that is when it was put in many, many years ago, it was not put in locations that make it very difficult to get it out. I think it's a limit. I think there's one quite a few years ago. But if you ever redid this.
are they on the well?
No, they're on.
Oh, they are on us. But so what, it's just, it's just,
It's looped.
got it. So it's like an agent subdivision, right, or private subdivision. So, it's a long-term thing. I guess I just try to stress that the past doesn't have to define the future. I was part of, and I say it, and this had nothing to do with staff or the people that worked at Arrowhead. I did disagree with the past board. I don't think that they addressed things. I had children that went here. Now, yes, they were wrestling, but it's still part of the school. The softball, girls softball team uses that down there in the winter to practice. I mean, there was tiles that had fallen off a wall that were literally just stacked on the floor. That was for over 5 years. No, it wasn't. It was 4 years because they fixed it Jeffrey's senior year, where Ganos Concrete came in and actually fixed the tile themselves. Because this is what I mean about thinking about what makes it better. Well, it's downstairs and no one really sees that, so we don't need to fix that. There's money's got to go somewhere else. But it's, those are the little things. I think that's what I mean about the little things. Well, one tile fell off, and then 2 more fell off, and then a bunch more fell off. And yes, luckily someone came in and did it. But if they wouldn't have, those tiles probably still wouldn't be on. So I just take care of the little things right away. But right now we're not in a little situation because it's 25 years of little things not being taken care of. And so now, it saddens me that the community was in such an uproar over the COVID stuff, and somehow that dwindled. And now there's a lot of people that don't even realize that the entire board, the state of the school right now, is not because of the current board. It's not. It's because of 25 years in the big banner and saying, look at this, don't look at that. Look at the field, don't look at that. This and that, everything's perfect. It wasn't all perfect. And nothing ever is, ever. And the championships in football helped, people forget about that. And, the boxes on the football field, and those are awesome things. But now we're where we're at. Because no one's looking at the box on the football field anymore, and this and that. Now we have kids that are still going to school, and now we got a board that's in a position where community needs to know the whole board has been changed and is trying to figure out whatever's best for the school now. So when it comes to working together, I am a firm believer that the entire district should be one district. I think the redundancy, and this is nothing against superintendents, but the redundancy of superintendents, I just think it's, I'll be straight. Every one of these school boards gets in and say, well, what are the surrounding school boards paying their superintendent? It's not based on, I'm sorry, but it's not. You can't tell me that the Arrowhead superintendent has the same workload that the Merton or North Lake superintendent has, and honestly, even more Heartland Lakeside. Heartland Lakeside, they have 1, 2, 3 schools. Okay, so there's an argument there, but I mean, there's a lot of schools that are just one school. You got a superintendent, a principal. Well, if you have a principal, if you have a superintendent, and you don't have any more schools than one, what do you need a principal for? I'm just being real, because that's 110 grand. You have 8 superintendents. Let's just rough this out at 180. You're saving $2.3 million by changing one thing and becoming one district. That's just in superintendent. Again, this is not, I know it sucks. This is nothing against the superintendent anywhere. They're all wonderful. But keeping the job open, just because we already have them, that is not trying to make the best learning environment for our kids. That our boards voting simply so that they can subsidize keeping an unneeded job open just so someone can have it that has a job as a superintendent.
You're talking consolidation.
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really have much to do with the annexation discussion. Right?
No.
Understood.
No, it doesn't. I would just simply say that it's not only with the Heartland thing that I believe it. I believe doing what's best for the taxpayers to make the cheapest cost. But I also don't want to be lost in that. I don't want it to be lost that I believe that the best service needs to go forward.
Yeah. So can you take us through more long-term partnership opportunity as it relates to potential annexation in terms of what you guys have in mind for rec center, pool, things like that?
Well, we were
How do we approach the, for example, I would say the biggest opportunity we see with you guys right now in terms of annexation of this pool. We're diving into the pool, pretty much dead on this last slide. We can't get funding from a referendum perspective. So how is we partner with you guys to help make that happen?
Well, I talked one time, let's just say that let's say you all of a sudden got annexed into the village of Heartland.
Yeah.
Right now, there will not be a pool that Heartland will build on the property there. I mean, even no matter what, it can't happen, because I can't go to the Heartland taxpayers, say you're gonna pay for a pool, but it's gonna be in Merton. Because even though this is Arrowhead, this is Merton. Can't do it. So, if it was annexed, and let's just say we built it here, maybe it would be somewhere else, but let's say we built it here. I'm gonna throw numbers, and these are real, I don't wanna get into the numbers because I'm just flinging them around, but I'm showing you how it would work. Let's say, remember I brought up Tosa East, that they go and they rent a football field instead of building a whole football stadium of their own and buying the land to do it. Let's say that Heartland did it because it's really gonna help, because Heartland would like to have a pool, but obviously the Heartland board has looked at it and said, okay, it's too much money. Arrowhead wants a pool, and their taxpayers have said, too much money. If the two come together though, and if Arrowhead can pay a fee for 20 or 25 years, that equals $15 million. Well, that means Heartland's getting a pool. Obviously, Arrowhead's gonna have a lot of time that they're gonna wanna use it. But they're in a long-time contract that they're going to be paying a fee to have proper use of that pool, and then that pool will be built to a standard that can be used for competition and things like that. And if Heartland wanted a pool, and again, I'm not saying we're doing this, I'm saying this is what it would look like. So now we have a long-term contract that absolutely no matter what, and I can tell you right now, I would never sign it if it didn't, where it's like, well, all of a sudden Arrowhead did decide to build a pool in 5 years, they still can't back out that agreement, because we just built one and now we're starting with it. But it would help Heartland because Heartland's getting the pool for half the price. Because Arrowhead then is paying a fee, but Arrowhead doesn't have to come up with $30 million right now. Arrowhead's gonna come up with a certain amount of money to be basically leasing that time and space. But Arrowhead also isn't having to take care of pay workers to clean and do whatever. I don't know.
That's kind of what I talked about last time, is we have the debt borrowing capability, that if we had facilities or shared services on here, that if we built a pool, you guys had the operational expenses or whatever for 20-year agreement. That's the difficult part, is working on that agreement.
Mhm.
So that our residents or residents of the district could use it off hours. Like right now, most schools it's just locked down and it's tighter security. If you had an off-campus, bigger ice rink, is it open to the public too? So it would be a pool like that too, where it would be open to the public when it's not in use for school or school activities. And it would be something that generates revenue and that type of thing, so that residents would have that ability to have a pool, but you guys would still have a pool used for the school. It would make no sense to have that here versus busing kids.
Right. So ideally, but yeah, and the public aspect is huge on that. And I'm not saying that I agree with that they did this, but the timing was right. They had an entire community that was really excited because they all of a sudden became really good at football, but Mosquito only got the referendum through because they allowed the public to use the league. They said, okay, now the people that own, I'm not all for that because you run every single gym in the entire community, which it did out of the community. So all these business owners just got ran out. But they got it across because they went and said, you'll be able to use all these weightlifting facilities as well. You can come and use these facilities. So they have times. Now they backed off on the times, which some people are kind of upset on, but that's not mine. What?
Just a question for Jeff. If we were to do something like that, could we pay any of those fees or subsidize it from Fund 80?
A portion of that probably. If we're opening it up to the community, if it's a community based program, yes.
Because that could change the
Oh, that's
funding
Yeah.
of how it's funded.
a great question.
Can you go back and, for the board members,
Thank you.
members of the public that weren't here, go through the financing aspect of capital project like that?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, everything depends on what it is, we do with the roads, with everything, but doesn't matter. These meter are the most important.
Yes.
The financing. So, yeah, it's something, we have a debt levy limit, so we have like $110, $120 million that we can borrow. We currently have 18 or 19 million total borrowing. So what we would do is, we would take out a borrowing, a 20-year borrowing for that facility, build that facility. We work out an intergovernmental agreement with you guys for the use payment, however, whatever that agreement is between both parties. But essentially, we'd be paying the debt service of it. We're hoping, obviously, like you said, you're not getting the revenue back. Swim lesson fees, or if there's swim meets, or whatever it is, that's all something that we would have to figure out together. I don't know what that looks like, because you guys would probably have more swimming events, things of that nature. But it goes to, and I mentioned last time, if you built an auditorium that other dance studios are coming in, plays are coming in, you're getting outside revenue for that. But again, if that's something we funded, we would fund the debt. You guys, we'd have to figure out how the operational works, how the revenue works, things of that nature. That's the unknown in all this.
That's, non-referendum debt.
I'm not right. But I wanted him here, because he left, because it would be our 7 board members who would vote for that or not. I don't have to say. It's up to the board if he's back. It's up to the board if that's something they want to. So, obviously, at that point, Heartland taxpayers should have to take priority on open that, because we're funding at Heartland versus, you guys would have, we have some kind of agreement with how often you guys have it, and how often our people can use it.
You guys want any numbers on what the tax impact is?
We didn't have, I haven't even looked at it.
Yeah.
There's just, he's always
What about,
got.
what is the tax impact on spending $1 million?
So our $30 million
$30 million
is
is
dollar
what?
time.
Yeah, $1.10 per person, or $1.10
For the minute,
per
like 35 cents per 10 million.
Would the village of Heartland consider
Per
doing a survey? I understand Sussex area did conduct some type of survey of the public, just looking for input around, I guess, need and want of an auditorium. Would Heartland consider doing the same?
I mean, we could go out and ask more, you're talking about do a mailing?
I think this was electronic, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's how they conducted it.
Heartland's pretty, well, we could do that, yes. I mean, there's no question of how many people come through saying we need more for kids.
Sure.
When I went out, even when they were even thinking about doing a rec center, I thought the biggest thing that, people were gonna have was a problem with the money, and the biggest problem that they had was just, they wanted to make sure the location was a certain place. That was, I thought for sure, 75% of the people were like, we need this.
Did you have a dollar amount attached to that kind of
Go back.
idea or the rec center?
I think it was, that portion was gonna be 13 to 15 million.
It was a smaller gym.
We backed it off.
So we have a location I've mentioned to him before, the Capitol Wayside. We, nowhere in this area, we have like, I don't know if you've seen the Orthopedic Association facility in the room. It's like a huge sports complex where they do baseball, volleyball, it's constantly packed. That's the only location we have that we debated doing something like that, but those are probably 50 to 60 million without donors and people funding that. That's the hard part for us too. Everybody wants it, everybody's willing to put up.
Land near here for other opportunities?
What?
You guys have land near here?
Not necessarily near here. I mean, Harbrook is the closest, it's with the, right now it appears that that's where Village Hall and, police is gonna go. If we were gonna do something, that's when we were gonna do it. That's where the rec center would have been, we backed off the rec center, but the rec center wouldn't be attached, it's already on park. Then there's a trail that goes right through
If
the
you look on Cottonwood Avenue, you'll see a facility off to the west that is about a really large piece of public owned jungle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Or in the industrial park,
Yeah.
which people have done that.
Yeah.
That's an option.
So if Arrowhead was annexed to the village, our land would be potential places for things like a pool or a case.
Only with the board's approval.
Yeah.
But then at least it's inside of, just like Heartland Lakeside. Heartland Lakeside land could be available if we partnered up and did something, but only with the consent and permission and want from Heartland Lakeside, because it's their land. But if we get something there, we're doing it in Heartland.
We had, because you guys know we're going through the facility thing right now too, a bunch of comments on social media where why don't we just put our police and fire station on Arrowhead, so. You
Well,
guys
yeah,
have enough land to let
someone-
us build.
Did you see, someone actually was like, well, why don't you just make it a whole school and public safety building and then everything will be. I just think it's funny because they're making the comment thinking it'll just be the same cost. So now it won't be when you guys ask for a referendum, like, it's rough out there, you guys, it's rough. Telling you. The struggle is real. But no, get it out, take it, that people say all kinds of comments, but we're gonna have we'll have people come in, I know you did, we're gonna have people come in, and there's gonna be naysayers, and you really try to listen to every single one of it, so you know if you're really missing it. You know, I can walk through the police department, and I can see that we need it.
And I'll tell you,
We're in an old garbage.
the hard part is I would challenge you guys to come up with ideas with us. So he has a desire to pool, he knows my thoughts on the pool. But it's the finance,
Ask any finance guy what they think about
not
it.
the chance.
No one would know how to swim in all the United States if the finance people were out in the water.
So, in Heartland, obviously one of our departments is recreations. We have that desire for indoor everything, you know, whether it's baseball, soccer, basketball, volleyball, pickleball, tennis, all of that. Performing Arts Center, I don't know that that's like something we need, but there might be a Lake Country Playhouse, or somebody that wants to partner with that aspect of it.
Yes.
Yep. So you guys just need to kind of tell our board and have those, you guys might even need to do a session with them to figure out what is possible. You know, we really can't do anything without being annexed, we just don't annex it, nothing's possible. I did tell you, we are redoing Campus Drive, and you guys kind of gotta let us know what, if we're connecting something or not, you know, because we're gonna have a dead end going to, we have a stormwater pond in Chestnut Ridge back here. We have an issue with the drainage back there. Behind it, the easiest way to get through this bridge, we can't do that, we gotta go through some territory, because it's not hard. So,
Okay,
there's a desire, the Heartland needs, this area needs some kind of sports complex facility. It's just, how do we get there?
And something to think about, if campus gets connected, the sun, when someone is driving on, well, that's Arrowhead Drive, on Arrowhead Drive, is directly in people. There was a kid that was hit almost critically walking, and the kid was in this crosswalk, a kid was driving to the east, person, it wasn't a kid, was driving, didn't even see him, I think smoking. So we would have, one thing I stress is even without whether that connects or not, I do think that it's a good idea to see if there's grants or something out there to do something for that, in that crosswalk area. Even if it's an overhead sign that when that sun is at that perfect, you know, I don't know, but I just know that it did cause serious, the kid got really hit hard. But that would be more traffic, but that would start to alleviate that traffic. We have traffic problem outside, no doubt about it.
And you guys know there's a bunch, like, there's a Western Lakes fire, Lake Country fire, we're our own fire.
We are all there.
Those conversations to create that, took months, days, years, that would be us too. It's not something solved overnight, but you guys would have to figure out what you're looking to do, and our board would have to talk about what we want to build and be fun. It would have to be a joint venture that we all agree upon, whatever the use is.
so moving forward, water, fire, we know where we're at. What we don't know is what the cost differential may look like.
Cost of what?
The cost differential may look like for SRO.
We have that, it's something I can get that too.
Okay, that's my next question. If you could
It's
compare
not like
something.
that. It's a, Torrin has the field, the vehicle, the hours, the training, it's in everything, it's not like it's just what it is what it is.
Okay,
And that, yeah.
yeah, if you could provide that to us, like, you know, again, just another
Sure.
important
And you
piece.
have two domes on,
We do two.
Two ships,
two ships.
One on each.
Eight.
One on, yeah,
Yes,
There's a
So what are they
first and second shift
first
until
and second shift.
first and second.
So what is it, 6 and then
6 a.m. to
10
10 p.m.
Okay.
I missed the question.
So
What is
6
the
to 2 and
hours?
2 to 10, that'll be your shifts. And then for the football games, they stay later.
We have a little overlap.
Yeah.
We can get you the details so you can price exactly the same what we have now.
Sorry, I didn't change anything unless you guys wanted to change.
Yeah.
And again, Waukesha County, it's not like they provide bad service, it's not that at all, it's just, we can't do it because you're American. If you come into Heartland, they can't do it, we have.
Right.
So,
Okay.
When did it change to, just wondering?
Pardon me?
When did it change to June?
Last
Last
year.
year.
Yeah,
Little
that
over
was
ago,
maybe
about 18 months ago.
Just wondering.
yeah, you have our fire contract, we're
Yeah.
the subcontracting question, thanks for this also.
Yeah,
No, 6 months ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I think
I was on the
you have
board,
our
so it's
commitment that moving forward, our board will give this some serious thought. And so, I can formally, request that information from you guys and we can.
Okay.
bring that
Right.
forward.
Don't have service, but yeah, I can talk to our rec director about surveys are always dangerous, because delayed everything.
I would love it if Arrowhead, whoever it is that's in charge of that, and the rec director in two things, and just throwing this out there, okay, he's an Arrowhead, no. I'd love it if the rec director and Arrowhead can talk together, since we are, whether this thing goes down or not, since we're right there, we could really use some space. You guys have it. I don't care what we spoke on before, but I said, this year we got the carnival and everything going on in Hartland, we went, it's just a big lot, we can park where we can run shuttles, and it's like, those are little tiny things we can do to work together. It's not just that one benefits Hartland. I want it to benefit both of them. I'm saying those are little tiny things where in the past it hasn't happened. We do have a wonderful library right there that if someone does get out of school and wants to go over there, anybody from the district wants to go over, it's a county library. Even though it's Heartland Library, but it's right there. I wish there was more collaboration so that we did know that was there for the students and what we have to offer, and even the families in the district. I know that in this day and age, it's not just the students, it is. I mean, how often is it being pushed to you, or even we see things across the United States where it's like, no, you have to do breakfast, lunch, dinner, I'm not saying I'm all for that. I'm completely taking the responsibility off the parents. I think the school provides lunch, they provide what their school is serving. If you don't like it, you can bring lunch. That's my personal beliefs. Breakfast, I don't know, it's sugar and cinnamon on toast. There was days, believe me, grape nuts with no sugar. Believe me, that all went down. You survived through it, I promise.
Okay, well, you both have given us a lot of, I think, food for thought. Greatly appreciate you both being here, just to, I think, broaden the perspective and give us a lot to think about as a potential link to options as,
Sure.
As we look for long-term plan here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you both so much. Thank you
Awesome.
very
I
much.
know you have a ton of kids, and I'm sure you can't ever do this, and I'm trying to fully is in such disrepair. Like, I know my old high school, I think there's like 3 high schools that team together. Is that something you guys ever looked at? Or you guys want your pool, I get that. What are you gonna pay for it? What is the next option?
Well, I think, Ryan has explored that. I mean, we've had periods where there have been some major repairs going on. I mean, the pool is what now, 55 plus years old, and it's been known to go down for relatively long periods. So Ryan has those kind of systems in place where he can reach out to other schools, and they're very neighborly with us. But at the end of the day, it's a great inconvenience for the parents and for the kids that are trying to get to swim at 5 a.m. And they're driving away across town somewhere. So, yeah, I mean, those things are there. Our AD is looking after those things, but it creates a lot of difficulties.
If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Number's right on the website.
Super.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
you.
Really appreciate you all.
Hopefully everything goes good as you're going through these workshops, guys.
Thanks.
We'll see you all out and about soon.
Great. Sounds good, Jeff.
You bet. Bye, guys.
I know. Okay, I think from here, I'm gonna turn it over to Jeff, who's put a number of other things together for us to be considering this evening.
Yeah, so I took the comments from the board members and what you guys wanted to discuss, and a little bit from our last June 5th facilities workshop, and just try to put a bit of an agenda together. So that's all these slides are. You've got them on paper in case you wanted to take notes along the way. So we can go in any order, but these are, there's a link. I think you all have these slides too. Kim may have sent them out to you. So you can click on that link. Those are your thoughts and ideas from the last workshop. You also have them in a Friday notes. I think they went out a while back, right after the workshop. The start items were the things that rose to the top for you. So if you wanted to review those. But here's some questions that still need to be answered by the board. How many buildings are we going to operate out of? Are we going to keep the 2? Or are we going to try to consolidate into 1? Referendum or not? Are we even going to go for a referendum, or are we just going to, I don't know, let the facilities continue the way they are? So referendum or not, and then if there is a referendum, capital referendum or operational referendum. We're currently in our first year of the next 4-year operational referendum that passed in November of 24. But one of the questions that came up was, could we do a operational to raise enough money to do major building renovation repairs? So that's something we'll have to tackle. If we go for a referendum, when? What's the timing? Next opportunity is February or April of 26. No fall opportunity in 26, and then in 27, there's both spring and fall opportunities again. Architect and CM. Do we stay with the current architect and construction manager? Do we stay with the current architect, different construction manager? Do we look at a different architect, different construction manager? That's something we have to figure out and decide where we go. So we better stay there. Do we do a community survey or not? To figure out what the community says we should be looking at here. So, do you guys want to talk about those now, later? Or want to keep moving and come back to this? It's up to you. Any thoughts?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just in looking at the slides that you provided for everyone, which really, stemmed from what had been our facilities plan, facilities assessment rather. Looking at 10-year maintenance of $53 million. When you take a look at total North and South Campus at year 1, which is our academic year that's approaching, right? We're at 14 million of that 53, with another 2+ in athletics and grounds. So we're looking at almost roughly a third of the total costs for our 10-year maintenance accruing in our first year. Are these then, and breaking it down, I mean, those were building systems, those were the big costs. So what happens clearly when we have no budget to pay for 16 million? These things just get pushed down the road. All the HVAC, all of the roofing, all of the plumbing, all of the everything just continues to be pushed down the road. Just so I'm reading this correctly. Is that accurate?
That's how we got to the 16 million that's sitting there waiting to be done today.
Gotcha.
Because it's been continually pushed. It takes a referendum to generate any dollars to do that. The operating money doesn't do major renovations, and it really wasn't intended for major renovations, which is where we're at right now. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, some would say you can cut positions to get revenue. So 10 teachers, get $2 million. That's not going to make a dent. It's going to jack up class sizes, and it's probably going to make us less attractive as far as people wanting to come here. So that hurts your enrollment, which is not good for finances. So that would be another option. If you can't raise revenue, you got to reduce your expenses.
Thank you. I really just wanted to clarify.
I would say what keeps getting done are the most urgent priorities, like when our rooftop unit has to be replaced, we have to have heat and air. And so that gets done. But other things just cannot get done, the funds aren't there.
We've got 3 emergency rooftop units that we're gonna take care of this summer. One over this library, that's giving us trouble right now. We're hoping it'll hold out till September when we can get the equipment, but we've got to replace it. It will not last through the winter. And there's 2 at North Campus and the East Gym that we're gonna replace, because it wouldn't be cost effective to repair them. It's gonna cost half the money to repair them that it would to replace them. And I believe we're keeping the East Gym, so we're
And
just,
they're all 25, 30 years old.
Right.
There's not a question that they haven't done, given their life, they're past the expectancy.
So in your estimation, at what point do we reach a position, in what year, where, or are we way past that point of being able to sustain even our ability to identify the worst HVAC unit out there? It's failing, and we can't pay for it. I mean,
well, right now we've been saving money, kind of waiting on what we're doing here. We've saved some of the $1.7 million that we had for infrastructure. We put that in Fund 46. So that's what we'll be tapping into to take care of these rooftop units. So there's $4 million in there right now, but $2 million of it is earmarked for special education renovations. So that leaves $2 million to do some of these other renovations. So we've got that here, sitting there waiting for these emergency projects that have to happen. The pool, we just learned today that the pool's got another issue. We just replaced that coil 3 years ago, and now it's failed again. So that's that unit, I want to say, is close to 30 years old also. It's the Dectron unit. It provides the dehumidification, the air conditioning, and the air flow. So we still got airflow, but the conditioning and dehumidification isn't working the way it should.
When Bill said that's so old, you can't even get parts anymore. But that's part of the reason I think those compressors aren't lasting, is you're putting something on a piece of machinery that's so old, it's not going to operate in any kind of efficient way. So we'd have to look at some numbers on that, Kim. It's hard to give you like a hard number of years,
Sure.
but it wouldn't be many. If the worst case happens with all those rooftop units, it's a matter of years before there's just no money.
Okay.
But we have to look at the operational that we have currently, if you're relying on some of that, plus the Fund 46. And we have to look at that, what Bill's been doing as far as an analysis of what are the most urgent issues. He's been studying that since he's been on board. I'm not sure how far along he is on that, but I know he's making progress.
He's got, we started in 24, 25. He built out what, he would suggest last year, which didn't get done, just the emergency stuff. And then we built that into next year. So we just need to go through and refine it a little bit, and then we're ready to bring it to you guys.
Okay.
Share it.
What if we eventually pull the plug on the pool? How much would that save?
Annually,
Shut down.
Operating costs? We'll have to, I don't know offhand. We can check on that.
You know what the failure of that coil is gonna cost?
We replaced it 3 years ago for $20,000. So
I think he estimated it would be 30
20
now.
to 30,000.
That wasn't based on a quote, that was just based on his knowledge and inflation. And that's why he did, again, the way he described it today, what was he, that they stopped making them, they stopped supporting them, it's hard to get parts
It's
for
hard to
them.
get parts for it anymore.
And so it just makes you afraid of how even putting 5,000 or something like that, is that a good use of money? 2030 does not seem like a good use. So he would start all over and basically get what did you say, a boiler system and a separate HVAC thing just for the pool. He's got ideas. We don't have the money to do that.
Well, we'd have it at Fund 46, but it's a matter of, do you want to stick that kind of money into that
Right,
pool
and then nothing
at this point
else.
in time we know the gutter system is also a
Right.
problem that needs to be repaired. That's another big expense. Between those two, we're talking probably 1.5 million, just those two pieces alone.
And again, this comes following the board signaling that, I think we've probably already surpassed, quite frankly, the maximum that we had suggested we would even invest in the pool. So, okay, I mean, I appreciate your answers. If the board would signal going to referendum, it would speak to the timeframe by which that would need to be done.
I mean, it's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point. Operating dollars just don't renovate facilities. And you can maintain your systems year after year, which we do. That's how we got 25, 30 years out of these systems. You know, we do maintain them. We do put money in those for maintenance. But to replace, the operating budget doesn't cover replacement as many rooftop units as we have. They were replaced once with referendum dollars, several of them, back in 2000, I believe. Anything else? You want to talk about any of these questions or keep going and come back to them?
From my perspective, I keep going back to this amount of somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million. That's whistling Dixie. Because we have two buildings. The inefficiencies and the redundancies and this amount of money that is really not netting us anything. There's no return on that expense. It's a very, very bad value proposition to our taxpayers. And from my perspective, I firmly believe we should not be operating on a two buildings. So I'll put that out there. It's my opinion. Any other thoughts on that?
I mean, I think we need to, as a group, answer like the fourth bullet point, if referendum, you know, and when. I mean, just the first part of that, if referendum, are we going, where's our head on that? And then we can start talking about what we each think and where that should go. I think that has to be answered before we can move forward.
And just to address that, I think we all agree with you. That's how we all voted the last time around. But our taxpayers disagree with us. So,
Well, they disagreed apparently for a number of reasons. Some of it is undefined. But certainly at the price point that we proposed, there was disagreement there.
yeah, and the only message was this best price we can do with one building structure. So for us to find another solution or one group, we've already put our best foot forward, seems pretty hard. Must figure out a way to do it cheaper.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head was going. If we, from what I understand, in the last go around, we did it, it's as little expense as possible to get under one roof. So,
Yeah, that's what we asked for.
and that was,
UA and BJ has to go back, give us the number that bottom number on one structure. So, before we
But that also included a pool, major road reconstruction, movement of a lot of fields, and so forth. I don't know what a partnership with Heartland would look like. Whether something like that could be incorporated into more of a long-term plan for construction. If we take a look at leaving the pool out and potentially partnering with the village, giving them what a long-term goal. What does that mean? What impact does that have? If some of the roadway cost could be a shared expense, what impact does that have on bringing the referendum ask down?
Or not even just the pool, the multi-purpose recreation area that was taken on there too, you know, because they were talking about that
Right.
as a key, more so than the pool, which Ryan seemed to be against, but multi-purpose was taken on to our original one building, which I am in favor of. Regarding another referendum, I think perception was everything with the last one. A lot of people felt it was just being thrown out there. What Lindsay had said, I agreed with when you made that point, perception is everything, and it looks like we're just throwing this out so soon after the large ask would fail. I think the same thing would happen here, but if we got the cost down even more, if you took the normal, so it might be a goal, and I prefer the one building more so for the safety of the kids, and I'm still concerned about our north and south campus and the safety and the entryways and all the doors. So.
And I was thinking kind of to add on to what you said, I was thinking along those same lines of, I really like the idea of the annexation with Harvard. I just wasn't sure how that then works in a timeline. What has to happen first? And then how does that work in conjunction with an architect or getting a design put together? Who can do what? And can Heartland take some of those things without, an architect or contractor going, no, we have to be able to do those like roadways or whatever. Can those things be taken over by Heartland?
Yeah, there needs to be more of a strategy, like, with those discussions, to find out, like, even the rec department, or the rec center, how much of it are they thinking that they would need for their programs versus all the sports, and we hear now we don't have enough space for all of our sports and activities in our buildings. Like, how would that end up, like, looking, so that way also we don't build it and it doesn't fit over functions.
Yeah, like time availability.
Right, percentage wise or whatever,
Yeah.
with the type of programs that they wanna do, or maybe aren't even offering yet today, and we know our restraints.
Is that something we can involve Ryan into?
Oh, yeah, if we were
Try.
gonna have a partnership, you can't guarantee that everything would be perfect, but certainly the collaboration of looking at, here's what we need, we can easily do that for our needs.
Yeah.
They'd probably have a little harder time, I think, to the point, they don't know for sure everything they might want to do, like they were talking something I don't think they have right now. So it's hard to know what they might need, but we would absolutely do everything possible to move forward with something that would suit everybody's needs.
Yeah, I think it'd be prudent for us to show our constituents that have voted this down twice and know that we're looking at other options. And I think annexation is obviously one that we put our effort there, along with the consolidation piece, where we can continue those discussions with leaders. We're clearly showing our constituents that we hear you, we're looking at other options. Maybe get some break-on referendum for now, building isn't gonna topple over anytime soon. We'll figure that out as it comes, but at the end of the day, we'll, work through hearing it. Hopefully that gives us more credibility if we want to get to the next referendum. Whatever that is, 2, 3, 4, 9, whatever that number is, that gives our constituents more faith in us that we'll be approving for tax dollars.
I agree. I think the consolidation discussions haven't happened in 20 years. And even then, they just kind of fizzled out. This is the first time that we've had all of the district board members come together. We're trying to at least deliberate on what's best for the whole district. So there is an absolute good faith effort in exploring as many options as we can to try and ease some of the burden from the taxpayers.
This feels like too much of a bite-off. We're going after a referendum again. Annexation, consolidation. It's not gonna be possible.
It's a lot.
It almost feels like there has to be a strategy for the whole entire educational system of how we want to change it, what we want it to look like. And then figure out what we need for building that will support that.
Yeah, it sounds like annexation would be step one.
It does.
It does.
And the board has signaled support in moving that forward for true deliberation. We can certainly position that even on the next board meeting, if there's interest. And at least initiate the process.
Yeah, perhaps some of them, your idea with the cell phone policy where we have the board direct the committee to begin looking at it. Get it on that agenda work mostly. How do you bring the issue?
Would the next step for that be having both of our boards meet? Because we need to get basically some kind of a tacit agreement with the entire Heartland board, correct?
My understanding in talking to Charlie, so there were two roles. Certainly, our board could meet with the village board and try and come to some understanding in that fashion. Otherwise, our board could write a proposal for annexation with full board approval, and their board would hear from our board during one of their board meetings what that proposal looks like. And they would then take it to a vote. So it depends, I think, on the process that our board would like to see used.
Yeah, I wonder if the details could be hammered out in the committee in terms of, we talked pretty high level about the process for annexation. It sounded pretty easy, and I'm almost positive it's not gonna be.
Well, it sounded like they would guide most of it, you know,
Yeah.
once we got it going.
You gotta figure out what that is actually.
And
We can call that an
Right.
Yeah, Ryan has suggested he would absolutely help facilitate, and he has suggested repeatedly, it's not a difficult process, nor is it particularly lengthy. He had, to me, attached a timeframe at maybe 6 months on the outside. Once once the board signals approval and initiates with some type of letter of intent.
Would it be, is how we go about hiring legal representation of someone that's gone through this before?
I could certainly start out by contacting Bob Butler with WASB as a start. He can't act as our attorney per se, but
Right.
I'm sure he's got some knowledge about the process, as well as DPI. We could reach out to people at the Department of Public Construction and see if there's any advice or places they can steer us to for more information. Again, it's really more of a village action. I was even surprised that the board would even have to do anything, although I get that it kind of makes sense that there needs to be some indication that you're open to it. But really is more the village has to do all the heavy lifting, I would say. But I can start reaching out tomorrow, at least from the DPI and WASB.
Yeah, just kind of curious what the legal fees would be associated with that.
Bob's always really good, but yeah, if we have to go to our own attorneys, I'm sure it'll be a few $1,000s. The phone call is usually $1,000.
Right.
I guess I would be, for myself, I feel like it would be important for both of our boards to meet. I think in an effort of just full transparency, so everybody understands what they're getting out of it and what they're expecting to get potentially, and what they're looking for, and what, just so everybody's kind of on the same page, just so we're throwing around the same kind of thoughts and the same kind of ideas. So there's no questionable expectations, anything that we might be able to get a pool as we potentially had drawn up. They want a pool with, a bunch of slides and a bunch, I just want to be able to have that kind of discussion on a very open forum, kind of like this, so we can all just kind of air it out, talk about it, feel like we're all doing the right thing.
Okay. That makes good sense.
So, does anyone know what are the advantages of being in two different municipalities? Are there some? Because if we don't have one, the reason I'm saying that is tying this back into facilities, referendums, planning. How do we provide the community with a strategy if we're limiting ourselves to what strategies we can employ because our hands are cuffed by being part of two different communities? So before we start going down the paths of providing options and talking referendums, I think we got to look at this first, because this is currently limiting our ability to even provide options and a strategy. So unless someone can tell me what the advantages are of staying in two different municipalities, regardless of whether or not we partner with them, it seems from that discussion that it would behoove us, from traffic or whatever potential partnerships would be, to be in a single municipality as a first step. And then from there, that then opens the doors to potential conversations of other strategic partnerships that could address some of the facility needs, planning, future. Yes, we have some facility needs from a cost and repairs. There's no question about that. But when you look at a long term, I think we have to do this. And I agree with you, Brandon. I feel like we went to the community. There were a couple different options provided. And it was, in my opinion only, it seemed loud and clear that they were not in favor of that direction. And I don't think, my opinion only, that a reduction in cost is the solution. I think they're asking for a different strategic approach, whatever that might be, and that they're looking for a higher return on investment, whatever that dollar amount is, whether it's a bigger, better strategy, whether it involves consolidation, repurposing buildings, or a completely different way to educate or serve the community through recreation. I don't know, but it seemed like with the second ask going down, regardless of what other pressures or considerations might have affected that turnout vote, that I really think we should start with, do we have any advantages of staying in two different municipalities? If not, we probably should pursue that, because then that, again, opens up possibilities for future strategy. Whereas right now, we just don't have it. Jeff said it. They will never do anything on our campus because they're doing it for Merton. So that limits us from even starting a conversation. And unless there was some big advantage for Arrowhead with being in both Merton and Heartland, which seems like everybody's shaking their head. All right, well, let's do it. Everything's simple to me. I'm kidding. Try to introduce levity so people see.
I think we are disadvantaged right now. And we are limited in our options. So I think your point is well taken. And it does stand out as the first step forward. In what forum would the board like to consider this? Can it be as early as the next board meeting discussion? Should we bring this to Building and Grounds as part of committee? August 6th, I believe. We could do it that way.
That's next week. That's just maybe sort of, doesn't matter.
So once, we start moving with this, if the board signals approval, then, we can reach out to the village and, set a date for the discussion. And if so
I actually
as we
don't think we need
suggested.
to even bring it to committee, I think we're doing it right now. If this is it, I think maybe we can take a roll or, board of members here and see if that's something that each member desires. But I think, I don't know, it has to go to committee.
Maybe what does go to committee is more detailed. Have to take some actual detailed process. Just on out.
So if you feel it's like it should be on the buildings and grounds committee agenda before we put it on,
Well, at least have a little more information.
We will, by August
Here's
6th,
some
we should
follow-up
have
items,
the,
and then maybe they can take us through some more detailed process of the committee.
And Bill's projection on costs
Yeah.
would fit right into
So we'll
that.
do that also, those will, if we all nod here, approval to put it on committee. Your two items, Conrad, and following up on, and then, this is one of those that
that way too, it prevents us from going to the board meeting like we did with the curriculum, and all of a sudden it becomes a bigger discussion, and that is what they should have done at the meeting level.
So, we should go on.
please.
I agree.
Bring this idea forward.
Yes, I agree, I'll be at that committee meeting virtually that day.
MES.
MES as well.
I'm a yes to consider it, but I'm a no for the committee. I think we should have Brian put the information together, send it to us ahead of time. Conrad could talk with Bob and at least get some of the legal stuff, and then have it be brought to the board meeting, where then the board takes executive action as a collective group to say, we want the committee to do this. So I disagree.
So we have unanimous. So I prefer to keep it, the structure that we have is moving stuff forward. It'll avoid confusion, like it did last time with the cell phone policy, that part didn't work out. Historically, that's not what we've done.
I agree.
I
I
do
like
too.
that structure as well.
And it is like with the curriculum, although that was a whole timing issue with the textbooks and the deadline for purchase, but that the school board meeting turned into a committee meeting, which was not good. But how could it have been done any differently based on the time frame? Unfortunate. But I think this is the right way to go. Committee, school board.
Do you think Bob would be able to prepare something, Conrad, by the 6th then?
I don't think so. I'll, if I find out there's any issues, I'll let you know, and I can also just go to another firm. I could go to Tolos at that point.
Okay. I'll reach out to Ryan then to make sure that he can provide us with what we would deem as comparable SRO information, so we can take a look at.
We can get that to him.
You'll get
Yeah,
that
let
from him,
Jeff look, because we have the actual contract and the details of the
You do.
order, so we can make sure it's apples to apples.
even better. Okay. Good.
So I guess maybe the next topic, we should talk about whether or not we want to continue talking about potential referendum, dedicate most of our time and effort focus to this along with potential consolidation. When is the next consolidation meeting? Is that on the calendar?
It is on the calendar. There's been a request to change the date.
It was August 21st. For the school board.
And I think that presented as an evening that is occupied by one of our feeder school board meetings. and presents as a conflict to board members to attend. And so they very specifically asked if we might consider a different date because they would very much like to be a part of the conversation. A lot of interest there. So we might want to reset that date to ensure that they're included. Is that okay with the board? We can maybe circulate another one of these doodle dogs. We'll doodle away. Get another date.
They want more, right?
I was gonna say, you need that for all those districts, I thought.
Well, up until this point, our board has just basically kind of led the path on this.
Set the date.
Yeah,
Which school district is?
just Swallow.
And then move the board. Probably not this.
Don't know.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question because, I mean, we're coordinating with everybody else. Is there a way they can shift it tonight? That'd be really nice to ask.
I can reach out.
Yeah, I would say, sorry, we have to keep the date based on what they would do this, yeah. See if they can maybe reschedule.
I mean, we need them there, but
It would be nice, yeah. Okay, I'll check in with them on that. And so we'll move forward with annexation discussions. Beyond that, does the board want to continue discussions at this time for referendum?
Let's go around the horn.
Pardon?
Can we go around the horn? Everyone's opinion.
Yeah, I think baby steps here, and let's figure out what our overarching strategy is and the beginning parts of the annexation, but I do not feel that it's necessary right now in the situation that we're in to go forward with the referendum. So I would not support that right now, because I think we've got a lot of things on the plate to do our due diligence, and that could help shape what a potential future referendum would look like. So it's my immediate thought.
Put it very, very perfectly, so the only thing I would add is focus on, the two big things that we talked about tonight, like consolidation, annexation.
those are both good points. I feel like I think, I get it, there's a lot to digest and a lot that we're discussing, but I think that multiple things can happen at the same time. I think dropping the ball for whatever the referendum might look like at this point is not the right answer. I don't know what it should look like though. I think we've been told what it should look like twice. So I think there's two different examples of what we should do. But I think it's important that we continue to have the discussion as we're having the other discussions. I get your point. It's a great point. They're both going to shape where we go with the referendum and kind of what all the pieces will look like together. But I think multiple things can happen at the same time, and I just think it's the wrong answer to completely let it drop right now. I feel like we should continue to move all the balls forward simultaneously. And it's a lot of balls.
It is too many balls.
I think they're kind of doing the things that are priority. I would just say it's less of a priority because the referendum can move on both of these two discussions that happen. It's better one for the time.
Yeah,
So
but
I agree, you actually.
Yeah.
Can't talk about what we want to do.
right. Yeah, 'cause without getting a better idea on the other pieces. I just feel like, maybe the right answer, the right response to that is really when. You know, I know we've been given a couple of different times from you, Jeff, on when the next opportunities are and what we should maybe potentially shooting for, is maybe that will help us on the back end organize where we're going with these other two pieces. And they're big pieces and they're not gonna get done quickly. And there's gonna be a lot of moving parts in all of those. I just feel like if we do a hold on all the referendum discussion, and just move those two forward, we could be all of a sudden find ourselves another 4 or 5 years down the road. It's gonna take time to continue to move these things, you know, and I don't know if we can, I don't know if that time is possible for us to wait. I think there's too many pressing things happening here that we need the money for, and I don't know what this picture's gonna look like, but I feel like we can't just stop that discussion.
Would it be helpful, and I don't want to interrupt, but would it be helpful if we tried to expedite the meeting between the Village of Heartland with our board to best understand the receptivity from the full board?
That's
I
fine.
think we have the board president, and there's a great deal of enthusiasm there. But perhaps it would be most telling to be able to have that conversation with the other board, and maybe we would come out of that better understanding whether or not this even presents as the opportunity we think it might be, or. Okay.
And because that's the crucial piece. I think the consolidation is going to add opportunity. I don't know if we're gonna really completely understand that opportunity until we really, everybody first of all gets behind it and start really looking at it. And I don't know how much that's gonna affect things as the village probably will in a more major way. Do you know those dates again, Jeff? Do you fill those out, the potential dates for the next opportunities?
Yep, I've got spring of 26, both February and April opportunity, so one or the other likely. Then you've got nothing in the fall of 26, it's not an option. And then in 27, you've got both spring and fall again, so February and April, likely choosing one of those two, or August and November. I believe it's August.
August 11th.
August 11th, yeah.
Was that right?
Yeah.
So that's 27, right? So 27 could have February, April, August, or November.
February 27, April of 27, January 27. Oh, no,
No,
I'm looking
that's
I got it, the election dates, there we go. November 26, November of 26, February 27, and April of 27. Yeah, this is in the last slide show from June 5th.
Because I think we're not gonna be organized and ready for anything in 26. I mean, I guess my thoughts then, just to backtrack a little bit, is to start to think about shooting for something in 27, continue to have that discussion, and have it simultaneously with the village, so we can understand how that partnership is gonna look and where we might go.
Well, it almost comes down to if the village, Jeff is all for it, but what if the board isn't, and then that would kill it right then, so then we would know, and then we could continue your quick. But if they are for it, I would like to see us push the referendum. Because I think our community is just referendum out, just kind of exhausted.
If I remember correctly, Swallow's going to referendum April 26. Is there anyone else going?
I haven't heard of it, but I can check.
Yeah, that's the tough part, because then there's diminishing returns, because, people in that community are just gonna say, well, we're very capital.
As well as would be operational or
I think so.
I believe it's operational, yeah.
so.
I will watch the recording because I won't be here for you guys, but I do apologize that I had to step out. Have a wonderful evening. So much. So children, I have a child. I need to get my baby. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
Swallow
so much, everyone.
School Board Administration pursue Operation Referendum April 7th, 2026.
Thank you.
If they have the details on their notes.
Okay, so I will I will approach President Vanderstoel and see if we can firm up a date. The summer's tough for everybody, obviously. But I'm hearing there's probably some amount of urgency in scheduling this. Shall I push for something for an August date? Would the bulk of the board be able to accommodate a meeting with the Village of Heartland Board in August? Okay. See what kind of dates we can come up with on that.
Looks like the village board meets on the second and fourth Monday of every month. I hope.
So I was kind of long-winded. That's
That's all right, I was just making sure you're all, got your voice here. So for me, the same thing, very similar, that I think we've got to figure out the strategy with Heartland, we've got to figure out consolidation. The only thing I would say is like, if something would come up where it gets to a point where like, we're gonna have to start hiring teachers in order to keep the lights on, that would be something that, then do we end up asking for some extra dollars to buy us some time? So that'd be the only reason why I would go to referendum before we're ready to do a bigger project. So, but yeah, I'm thinking 27, 28, somewhere there would be probably everything going on. Or depending on what we all learn.
The only thing I would add to that excuse me, is I am fully want to have the conversation with Heartland and see what that looks like, the annexation. The only thing that we really discussed with them, as far as the annexation is concerned, is some road improvements and the potential for like a rec center, maybe something to that effect. Those things don't address the other hundreds of issues that we have that are ongoing, that are only snowballing, have been snowballing since school let out for the summer, and will continue to snowball. They want to address safety issues that we've talked about, but still concerning to no end. And no one has given a viable answer to those issues. So I agree that, yes, rushing to a referendum, that's not viable. But letting it die on the vine, I'm not happy with that either. Because I still stand behind the fact that we have the same issues. And everyone who's come in to say, oh, I'm gonna fix this, I have all the answers, we can bring the community in, we're gonna fix this, we're gonna replace that. When is that happening? Where are they? Nothing has happened. And Jeff has gone over how many millions of dollars this is gonna cost just to do some repairs. We're still in the same aging facilities. Nothing has changed. So I absolutely, Heartland, fantastic. But I don't want to die on a referendum discussion. Yes, it probably needs to go out a ways until we have a strong strategy. And look at that, I mean, we've had those discussions, but.
No, I don't think it'll die on the vine, though. I think we're just pushing it out.
Which is what I don't want to happen.
Well, I just want to hear from Heartland about what their annexation will do.
Right.
You know, it's easy for them to say, oh, we will do this building, we'll do this pool, and then when you get in the discussions, it might change or whatever, like Chris,
Right.
pool with slides or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we need to hear more from them, but personally, I do think the community is referendum out right now, and I don't think they want to hear that we're talking about another one right away. So I'm for pushing it off, not letting it die on the vine, but, you know, let's look at the annexation, let's look at consolidation, and then we can go back to the community, and we're doing our due diligence to look at costs and cost savings, and we're working with Heartland, and we're working with the feeder schools to bring down costs, and we still are in the same boat. Right, facility-wise, so I say go ahead with the annexation, push off the referendum talk, so a little further down. Thank you.
I'd like to find a happy medium. We certainly cannot afford to keep kicking the can down the road. We had way too many people here for decades who did just that, and I refuse to take the same approach. We have a lot of needs, including the safety needs that I'd like to see addressed under one roof. So I think it'll be, for me, the sooner we can sit down with the board from Heartland and hash through and discern, I guess, true intention, what a partnership would look like, at least to the best that we can in one meeting. I think that would put a framework for moving forward around things. We would better define what our options look like. I'm not in favor of waiting. I think we just have to make sure that as we proceed, we're able to convey the story the most effective way. But I'm with that. I don't think we should be postponing that.
So I agree a little bit with everyone, but it really, to me, it comes down to three things: strategy, priorities, and needs. And for me, a question of, as an example of one building or two, I don't know if we should have that discussion until we have a complete strategy of what we're doing. The strategy of just saying we're going to have one building, it failed twice. So I don't think that's the strategy. I think the strategy has to maybe be a little more all-encompassing. I think we have to understand what our priorities are, but then also what our immediate needs are. So for example, kill is probably a bad word, to remove all discussion of any type of referendum. Maybe that's good, but maybe it's still needed if we start to see some things that we can't afford through 46. Remember, $2 million is allocated towards special education. That's only $2 million. Sounds like a lot of money. Not really. So for me, I don't think we should be talking big referendum anything until we have a real strategy. And again, stepping back again, I don't know if we can even define a strategy until we have openness of what strategies can be, which to me points back to the annexation and what those options can be. So again, if you peel all the way back, I think we still have to start with strategy, then what's our priorities? But keep in the back of our mind, what are our facility needs in case we need a referendum, like you said, Lynn, where maybe it's a little one. Maybe we need one for some Band-Aids until we can do something else. Again, I agree with you, Conrad. I don't think cutting 10, 12 teachers to fix a couple things is a great idea, but if that's the only way we can keep the lights on, then we have to. But that type of referendum's like, all right, when's the next date? That's an immediate need. So it's a different type of referendum discussion than buildings. I don't think we should be talking anything buildings until we understand what strategies are in front of us. What are we trying to accomplish? What does it mean to be Arrowhead? What do we want to do? And what options are open to us? And we go back to the priority. I'm saying the same thing over and over because I'm trying to reemphasize it. What are our priorities as a district? And what are our immediate needs? And then as these other discussions with the annexation and partnerships there, with potential collaboration with the other districts, again, that changes strategy. And I agree with you, Kim, with the story. But I think the community is looking for more than a story. I think they're looking for a value return on investment from an entire strategy. And maybe that means whole district wide. Maybe it means partnership. But I think they're looking for more. And we have to be able to tell that story around something that we all believe makes sense. So yes, I think we should keep the referendum in mind, the dates, but maybe not massive, maybe more Band-Aid. Keep that in mind. But we've got to understand what options are in front of us, what strategies can we offer the community to improve our district. And we can't do that until we know what we can do with our land being in 2 municipalities, if that's a potential strategic direction we want to take. But I agree too with Amy. I think the community's referendum now. It's going to be really difficult to see what these other feeder districts do as well. I don't know. I'm not defending, saying against referendum because the school funding metrics, whatever, it's broken. I mean, we know there's problems. It's not even keeping up with inflation. So there are issues there. And the small incremental increases in special education funding still doesn't come close to supporting the program. So it's not enough. So I agree with Kim though. We got to keep pushing hard, fast to do something. Because the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost and the worse it's going to get.
Does anyone, I'm sorry.
Just a reminder, at that next all board meeting, that was when each of the boards was just come back and tell us if their boards are even interested in either ideas of partnerships or consolidations for the future, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And I did secure commitments from a number of the board members or presidents of the various boards that those discussions would be scheduled. So we should be able to know where we stand. And again, where we stand is in multi-schools participating in a financial analysis. What would it look like towards consolidation? I wonder if there's anything we should be doing in the meantime. If we're not talking referendum, and we can't. Is there something educational? And you know, I understand your point about the community's referendum out. I also think that that's not a quite an accurate portrayal of the full situation. As always, I think we appreciate that so many in the community did not come in to better understand what a referendum spelled out, to come in and understand school funding and our deficits in funding. And so I can't help but wonder if there's something that we should be doing simultaneously that educates our community around our need, regardless of a referendum. We be educating our community on the need? And I'm really in favor of developing some type of communique to our community members that really helps them understand what has happened with public school funding. So I don't know. To me, I would like to even put some resources into that educational process. In the long run, we can't pay for our needs. We're not talking wants, we're talking needs. We can't even pay for our needs. And our community doesn't understand why we can't. And so whether we go to referendum tomorrow or in 4 years, I think there should be some process of informing people around what it is we're trying to accomplish, whether it's tomorrow or 4 years from now. So I don't know what people's thoughts are on that.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, the struggle comes in how we execute what resources we got.
I mean, I think that it speaks, I mean, first of all, yeah, absolutely, that has to happen. I think all of us have been involved with little anecdotes with community members and explaining things to them and them not understanding at all the reason that we're in this situation. So, you know, what does it mean? It goes back to some of the brainstorms we had before we started this, you know, doing some Facebook ads. They're cheap, you know, maybe some YouTube ads, and it's not going to strike everybody in the community, but will it strike some, you know, will it reach out more and help people at least understand the reason for the need? This is the reason that we can do. This is the reason that we've been asking for this. This is a 30-second elevator speech on why we are in this situation. Absolutely. That has to happen first, because otherwise we'll be at this table again in 3 years. Same problem.
I know we're looking at developing our usual communique, right, for the annual meeting, which is certainly the most expensive information piece that we put out to the community. I wonder if we should evaluate what goes into that piece and whether we want additional information specific to, I know we always put in there public funding, public school funding, but a bit more in depth, or whether we just touch on it, shorten that whole communique and put out an additional piece.
Do we have an estimate how many pages smaller it's going to be?
Yes.
We are deliberately trying to make it smaller to
Right.
free up funds for other communication.
Good.
I don't know if it'll cover it totally. Out of,
Oh, because it's usually
more last time.
but how many total?
So there is
10 or
8
instead of 12.
instead of 12.
So pretty significant reduction.
yeah.
I'm thinking it wouldn't be as expensive as what you're talking about, is that many pages.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
we might be able to fund it through that savings.
Okay. How does the board feel about that?
The one question would be how many communiques are effective too.
Right.
So, timing.
Well, anything we can do to support our point is good. I would be in favor of that. You know, there's so much misinformation that we've had to deal with both these referendums and Facebook pages that we're just not telling the truth, and blaming the board for mismanagement and not spending money properly. And why should this cost this when it really costs this and that type of stuff. And we've got to fight that misinformation, I think, and if we present it to the public, it's a good first step. I don't think that happened as much as it should have these last two go-arounds. And you know, the second referendum failed even worse than the first. So I hate to see another one come up, and we haven't done enough to let people know what is really going on. I mean, I think our board has done a phenomenal job of working with what we have. And the public, some in the public just don't realize that. And that's unfortunate. And that's kind of why we're here today.
Just a struggle about the communication and marketing department to be able to.
It is, yeah.
The scale of the greatness. A lot of all the other priorities that administration has in place. I struggle with the execution, because a lot of the other
I understand.
That's the part that I struggle with is what is the messaging to get it right? Because if we're to spend the money, what the right messaging is, like, were you either proactive or like, is just giving them the dollars and the graphs isn't working. So it's gotta be a completely different messaging strategy than what has happened in the past.
And even just a design around the message.
Right, right.
We're gonna need to talk about that committee.
Yeah, that is a good deep dive on what is, what the application.
Well, and I can't help but wonder, we have some really talented students. Maybe we ought to be tapping into the talent pool here and asking for some assistance. Some business, some of the folks in the business, graphic design, absolutely,
Photography.
yes.
What's the business I'm trying to think of? They do Fest.
Oh,
DECA.
thank you, yes. Yeah.
Some of the DECA kids.
But again, we can take that up in committee, but just a thought. We clearly have no money to go and hire a marketing director for our communication campaign. But maybe we could tap into some students and coordinate with them.
You would also reach potential public members as they're talking to parents, friends, grandparents in other fashions than it coming from the normal channels.
Or even a community member who's very good with videos and putting music together and things like
Hopefully
that.
we knew someone.
But it's kind of like YouTube, 1 minute, they change all the time, you know, just to focus on one thing, and this is our rooftops, and look what's failing, and we have so many of them, and how much they cost. And that would be one video, and then you go on to another. Look at our parking lot, and not the parking lot, I think it looks terrible, and that's more of a want than a need, but people see that when they come in, it's not a good look for the school, in my opinion. But that's always been put off.
I actually think it should be a focused direction where it's not different things all the time. I think it should be, Arrowhead has asked for money from this community for, 2 different years now for referendums. Why is Arrowhead not have enough money to run the school? And then let's go into a short, a 30-second history lesson. What happened in 1993? Why are we here? Why has this not changed? And obviously let our constituents realize that, hey, this is a fiscally conservative community. That's what hurt us. That's what hurt us in the beginning. And this is why we're in this situation, because of things that were locked in history, and it hasn't changed. And so I think, when you give just like a brief history lesson and just keep letting them see it, keep letting them see it, keep letting them see it, repetition. I think that's really what it needs to be. I mean, we can show, we've shown, issues with the school. I think we need to let them know why I'm here. I think that, the visual problems that we've all said that we have to try to overcome is everything that's been donated that looks beautiful on the outside. That's the challenge that we have to deal with. And obviously the perception of the school, like Lindsay said, perception is a challenge because the perception is there as well as the problem. Not, but why are they? We just have, I think we need to let people realize and understand that piece because that's the part that we know.
But sometimes if those pieces get too long, the attention spans these days are just like, ooh.
Yeah, just keep it simple. But yes, you're right.
Well, we can ask our chair to arrange some time during committee to take some of this discussion up. Sorry? Well, it's B and G F&L. Run through you.
I have enough, Lindsay and I have enough on our.
Personnel can give you some time.
It's donatable.
Bus and.
Thank you, Chairman Miller.
I appreciate you. Yes,
Okay. I don't know if you had anything else in the
You covered it.
deck of slides here.
The slides were just,
Yeah.
you actually had to, all of the slides. The next slide goes through what the next 4 slides are. So I think this is to be determined, right? You all gave your stance where you're at. This can be, we'll bring that to a committee, the capital maintenance issue anyway. And then we determine next steps. So I think you did a great job. You didn't need the slides.
Yeah.
And that's all August 6th.
So the next meeting date, I guess, was one of the slides. But,
Yeah.
answering these questions, I think that's, a start. So do we want to schedule another facilities workshop date or wait till we learn where annexation goes? We can determine that at the committee level too.
Sure. I think, the next 2 big pieces are, the meeting that we'll have with the community boards members from all the schools, and then also what happens with our meeting with the village board. And then I think maybe we can talk about next facilities workshop after that.
Okay. Well, I'll get a few dates from President Vanderstone. That their board is available for us. And then we'll doodle around those and see what works best for that majority to attend. Good, so that's next steps. Okay. I thank everyone for their participation.
Yeah.